Class, everybody!
It's my roommate.
How come you didn't say all the TV shows I was on? So they told me performing tonight would be professional comedians and amateurs. Who the fuck are the amateurs? So I would usually like to be topical, but something's been bothering me for the last few months. Did anyone here go trick-or-treating this past Halloween? No one? I figured. So I was always wondering, how come all these kids on Halloween, they go door to door asking the same question, and they always get the same answer, and they only want one answer? So why even ask the fucking question? Well, I'll tell you why. When I was a little kid growing up, I was going trick-or-treating, I was going from door to door. I knocked on this one guy's door, he answered the door. This guy balding in his 50s, wearing a wife beater, potato chip crumbs on his stomach. I'm like, trick or treat. He's like, trick, I'm a pedophile, get the fuck in here! He told me he had some candy called chloroform, so it sounded kind of good. So, yeah, I've also tried online dating. My first online date didn't really go too well. It lasted 15 seconds, but it took me 150 seconds to figure out what the fuck just happened. This girl comes up to me, she's like, are you Oren Glass? I'm like, yeah, are you Jessica? She's like, I'm so sorry, I'm not Jessica. Like, the second date went a little bit better. That one takes a little time to register. It took all in rehearsal also. The second date went a little bit better. This girl comes up to me and she's like, are you Oren? I'm like, yeah, are you Jessica? She's like, yeah. I'm like, how'd you know it was me, Oren? She's like, well, you're holding a fucking sign with my name written on in Sharpie mark like they do in the airport, so I'm not going to mistake you for anyone else. So girls are very hesitant to meet a guy off an online dating site, which is understandable. So to ease their fears, I tell them that a recent survey showed that 10% of all marriages in the U.S. last year were due at least in some part to online dating sites. They're like, oh, that's great. I don't tell them they're also responsible for nearly 50% of all missing persons cases. But they don't need to know. And if I call them back after the date and they don't respond, maybe they get 51%. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. So who here, this one I'm sure people respond to. Who here watched the Super Bowl? Yeah. Is anyone rooting for the Ravens? So, yeah. I was actually rooting for the 49ers, so I was kind of upset. They lost. I was devastated. A couple of friends asked me, well, you really wanted the 49ers to win, so what are you going to do? I said, well, I'm actually going to leave the country. They're like, well, where are you going to go? I'm like, Guatemala. They're like, why Guatemala? That's a poor country. I'm like, well, they have to ship the fucking 49er wins t-shirt somewhere. And then I go there, I get my 49ers Super Bowl champions t-shirt. All these Guatemalans are like, tell us about President Romney! It's like one big misinformation campaign. So now I'm going to talk about a topic everyone usually likes to discuss, death. Is it supposed to make it okay when you're about to tell someone that a close relative just died to make sure they're sitting down first? And if they're sitting down first, they'll be okay with the news no matter what the fuck you say? Hey, David, are you sitting down? Yeah. Your brother was murdered last night. Okay. Are you alright? Yeah, I'm fine, I'm sitting down. If I was standing up, it would have been pretty tragic. But then, what about the other way? Let's say you forget to warn them. David, your brother was murdered last night. Oh my god, if only I was sitting down! So, does anyone... You see a lot on the news, if someone dies, and they ask them, let's say someone had a close relative just died, and the newscaster's interviewing them, like, how do you feel? You just lost your brother. They're like, oh, it's hard. Excuse me, sorry. Why do they feel the need to say sorry if they just had a close relative just die? So I was watching the news on NBC. They were interviewing this guy whose brother died. And he's like, how's it feel to lose your brother? He's like, it's awful. Excuse me, sorry. You should be sorry. I'm trying to do a fucking broadcast here. Also, I know one of the other comedians talked about funerals. Kind of similar joke. I thought I'd do anyway. But my friend John just died. He didn't really. It's just for my routine. And I don't understand when they go to funerals, everyone was the nicest and best person who ever lived. Like, how is that possible? So I went to John's funeral, and they asked me to talk a little bit about him. And I said, okay, and I just got up there, and I was honest. So I came to talk to you about John today. He was a good friend of mine. But let me be honest, he was a fucking asshole. Even if it was freezing outside, he wouldn't give you the shirt off his back. You know how they tell you when certain people walk into a room, it would light up and everyone would gravitate towards them? When John walked into a room, people turned off the lights and left. So I'm sure most people here ride the subway here every day, pretty much.
Subway.
So it's kind of frustrating. First of all, I hate when people try to rush onto the train before you can get off. And it's like a game, you have to get out in time. But then when everyone rushes off the train, they get to the stairs and it looks like they're looking up at fucking Mount Everest. Like you want to help them out, give them rope, oxygen masks, gloves. But for some of these people, you notice it doesn't even matter. They're so fat. They take up 2 seats on the train. Excuse me, did you swipe your MetroCard twice? No, I don't think so, so get the fuck up. What was that? No, don't complain to me about the airlines wanting to start charging for 2 seats. You get 2 meals with that as well. I was thinking, shouldn't there be also a numerical limit to the percentage of effort you could say you put into something? Like people say, oh, 100%. Okay, that makes sense. 110%? 1,000%? Where do we draw the line? This guy goes in for an interview, and one of the questions he gets asked is, if you get this job, how much effort would you put into it? He's like, oh, I'd give it my all, 110%. Interviewer's like, oh, okay. Interviewer goes to his boss, he's like, what should we do? Should we hire him? He said 110%. His boss is like, fuck no, let's hire the guy who said 1,000%. Pay him the same salary and get nearly 10 times the productivity. And I'm thinking, how do you even get to 110%? That's hard to even calculate in your head. Like, okay, you did a great job this year. That's 100%. You said 110%. So how are we going to get the other 10%? Well, I'll tell you. I have an idea. My mother-in-law's in the office today, and she lives 10 miles away. So drive her a mile, let her walk the other 9 miles, and we'll call that the extra 10%. So I go to a lot of stand-up comedy myself, and I noticed that a lot of the comedians, even the really good ones, unfortunately, don't really have a good way of closing their act. All right, you guys have been great. I got to run.
All right, we got, you guys leaving? You gotta go, where you headed?
To the trains.
You gotta get, oh, you gotta get home. You gotta, sir, don't kick yourself.
I'm kidding.
Do you want me to answer that?
Go ahead.
Thank you for coming, dude.